You little rotten keg tapper, no name having, looking ragged, lame rapper. You nut hugger, butt buddy fudge packer. Okay, enough of that. My real friends call me Asher. Laughter. What kind of name is that, bro, dude? It's so.
What's up, folks? Welcome to 13 Minutes, the show where I try to be funny, even though I'm not at all. This week, we're in Conneaut, Ohio with Martin Dunn of Less Than Expected. What's up?
I mean, what is... I don't even... Like, there's no answers to those questions these days. My answer is the same as everyone else you're going to interview over the next few days, like the next few... however many weeks we have planned. It's going to be... I've been sitting around in my underwear, watching a lot of TV, playing a lot of video games, doing nothing.
Watching anything good on television?
What did we just finish? We just finished some stuff. Lovecraft Country. That was pretty good.
Oh, it's fucking sick,
That was
dude.
really
You
good.
like H.P. Lovecraft stuff?
Not really.
Whatever.
Have you ever actually read any H.P. Lovecraft?
No.
Okay, well, then you can't really say if you don't like it. But
No,
yeah.
I cannot.
Yeah. H.P. Lovecraft is interesting. It's a very interesting...
Try, Drew.
It's a read. There's actually
It's like a finger in the booty. You never know.
There's an annotated version I would suggest because it's very archaic style writing. Like his writing style is very different for people. Some people don't really click with it very well quickly because like he does use a lot of really old words that no one even understands what they are anymore.
That's why I just watch the movies, really. But his stories are just so amazing.
Well, I mean, he's literally like the guy that influenced most of modern horror.
Yeah.
So I mean,
sci-fi god. I don't even.
I guess
that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about comic book gods, I think, right?
not really. I mean,
No?
I thought we were
Not
talking
even?
about music, but I mean, we could talk about comic book gods. I mean,
We'll start with the music and see where it goes. What is Less Than Expected? Does that mean you guys have like small wieners or?
no, it's really funny you said that because like Less Than Expected. There was for a while it was my solo project, and I just called it Martin Dunn is Less Than Expected. It was a joke from high school that a buddy of mine, we started this band in high school called Less Than Expected. And it was literally a play on the fact that we were playing this show. We had no idea what we were doing. And they go, "What's your name?" And we didn't have a name. And my friend was like, and then he goes, "That was Less Than Expected." And like the guy that was running the show, and we were like, "Yep, that's the name." And so then when I decided to do a solo project, I've always been really, I don't know why in this way, but I've always been weird about, it's one of those really weird things. So like I'm really good at putting on a face. I've got a crazy history behind me of different things I've done. Don't mind the train. It's almost, non-existent for most people who live here. I just don't even notice it anymore. You guys look that way, and I'm like, oh yeah,
me and Drew both just.
there's a train over there. I keep forgetting it.
Jerk.
Oh, you really want to talk about fun? We record in this room. So sometimes when I'm recording, I have to just stop and go, or I have to decide, do I want to sound like a folk punk band right now? So anyway, when we,
like you're actually riding on the train.
So I've always been those weird people that, as much as like I can put a face on and pretend like I have this huge ego, it's really a lot of acting sometimes, and I don't mind putting on that feign of confidence for people, but the reality was I've always been really insecure about the idea of being like, well, my name is enough to push this item, this thing, this music, whatever. And so I didn't want to go Martin Dunn. And so
it's enough to push comic books.
Yeah, apparently. If you were in front of the camera, that'd be better because you could see you doing the whole thing. I'm just gonna start like miming you as I talk.
Yes. Yeah.
So
that's my expression voodoo doll.
So so whenever I decided to do the whole like Less Than Expected thing, it was sort of me just going like, well, I have all these songs, and I didn't have really a band right now because Komodo Bombs wasn't doing anything, and I started writing all these new songs, and so I put them forward as Martin Dunn is Less Than Expected. That was really what it was, but as a name, it's really not anything in particular.
It is what it is.
It's just a name.
Yeah, it is what it says.
Yeah.
Fair enough for us. What does it sound like? What does Less Than Expected sound like?
Oh man, that's a good one. What do we sound like? I don't know. A friend of mine once said that our band sounded like the Descendants, the Melvins, what was it? Dinosaur Jr. and Nirvana fucked in an orgy, and out came us. And I took that one. I was like, I'm okay with that.
I picked up on Dinosaur Jr. and there's like Built to Spill vibes. I was with it. Those are
Yeah,
similar
yeah.
styles.
There's a lot of stuff in there.
I picked up on that kind of style for sure.
I definitely think the Nirvana aspect of of our record, the This Machine Kills Scenes record that we put out in December of now, year before last. Holy shit! It still feels like the new record because we've
that
put
whole year we've just lost.
I know it just feels so crazy. I think
you
about
never
it.
even actually got to promote it yet.
We didn't. And you know what though? It was really cool, and it was really kind of surprising to us. We broke like 50,000 plays on Spotify.
Oh,
the
good.
record.
That's fun.
And we got some radio play for Faux CD, which was really cool. We didn't expect that at all.
Yeah, we featured that on You Might Not Know
Yeah,
Mondays.
yeah. So, I mean, that song apparently, like, people like that song. So we have like 13,000, 14,000 plays on that song. At least the last time I looked. I don't check
I
our
like
numbers
it.
enough. I stopped looking after a while because, COVID, and then I got really distracted with other things like TV. But, yeah, so as a whole, like, I mean, that record was very inspired by the Nirvana record In Utero. Mainly just because that whole record is about my battles with addiction and mental illness over the years. And so I had written all these songs and kind of put them out there in that way. It's like probably the most expressive and raw form of art I've ever created is that record. Just because it's so, like, everything about it is truthful and real and, like, kind of put through, like, a musical thing. And I think that what really brought that record out was when I we finalized everything. We brought in A.M. Gunter from Drawing of Flies, and he also does A.M. Gunter, his solo stuff. He came in and helped us like finish off like all the mixing and the stuff like that, and I think that really helped a lot because basically he showed up here one day and we sat here with some pizzas and beer and just knocked out all the mixes in like 12, 14 hours or something like that.
Is that all it takes? Pizza and beer?
Pizza and beer, apparently, yeah.
What kind of beer? What kind of beer?
I don't remember.
Gets less than expected going.
I don't really, I'm not a beer guy, though, really,
No?
that much. I mean, outside of, like, all the stuff that Clovenhoof, local brewery, friend of ours, Ryan, his place, like, they do some really good beers, and I'm not a beer guy, so that says
Shout out!
Shout out.
So, yeah. Well, it was funny, because I put the beanie on earlier, and Allie was like, my wife, she was like, smart, and I'm like, because my hair is fucking horrible? Like, what? And she goes, well, no, you're, like, supporting the local businesses. And I'm like, yep, totally what I meant.
Almost every time I'm on camera, I totally try to do that, too. That's just because I don't like shopping, so I buy all my clothes at shows, whatever.
He's doing this back there. He's
Same thing.
just like that.
Thank you. Hey,
He just did, like, a
maybe
half Carlton dance, too. I
one
noticed,
day,
so.
you guys might get to look at me. How long does it take to write a less than expected song? Give me an average.
Not long. Not really. Usually it's just, all of our songs, for the most part, I've never been, like, I have a couple that have come out that were jokey, stupid things. For the most part, stuff that's, like, kind of just flowing through. I've been very open about my mental illnesses with bipolar disorder and anxiety and depression and, ADHD and stuff. And so, it tends to sort of just, like, good song for me anyway, it's just, like, flow out. I always think about, in, like, the retrospective, like, how much it has to suck for people. We've had, like, this rotating door of drummers, and so it's, like, I always feel bad for them, because I'm, like, they come in, like, all right, so what originals we played? And I'm, like, well, there's, like, 30-ish right now, so you have to learn all of them, but there's a lot of originals, and so but yeah, I don't know. I guess the easiest way to say it is it's not really long. I mean, it's I still write music. We talked about this before, and it's completely kind of disconnected and for anyone watching, but I still kind of write like I used to write verses for hip hop. I would come up with a rhythm, an idea, a melody on the guitar, and then I would just write my lyrics to that based on what was going through my head at the time. And then I read a lot, so I guess my vocabulary's up there, and then I unintentionally still use multis and similes and and metaphors and punchlines and things like that in my songs, to which I get called out by friends that know I used to do hip hop, and so I always get that. And they're like, "You're still rapping." I'm like, "Oh, no, it's still there." Deadly Combination apparently is my biggest offender, where there are people who are like, "Dude, that song is full of like you could just take the whole song and move it over to like a hip hop beat and rap it, and people would still it still sound like a rap song." So
I'm always a big fan of that when you're not trying to do it, and obviously it's what you just said is happening. I don't really always like the trying to like force rap and rock or metal together, because honestly it's fucking terrible, and you guys really need to stop doing that. Please, for the love of God, stop. But when you're like writing punk music or metal music, and the way that you're just flowing, your cadence, whatever, the way you're doing, structuring your verses winds up sounding just like hip hop.
I think like you say that, it's like I say Limp Bizkit.
I'm a fan.
I'm not.
Like,
I'm not.
I understand why they.
Why would you ever be?
I'm like a Linkin Park fan as well, and it's because these are like two underrated MCs who. Well, Fred Durst is not an underrated MC.
Mike Shinoda gets a pass, but Fred Durst.
Yeah, I should reverse myself.
Come
Fred
Together
Durst
now.
He just kind of made his way through. Mike Shinoda.
But that was called Come Together Now? Or no, Come Together, y'all. That was the rap song he did with Method Man.
In Together Now.
In Together. The fact you know the actual song name is depressing.
The only reason I know the actual song name is because it's produced by DJ Premier, who's one of my all-time favorites. He's the one that was, one half of Gangstar. And so, like, I'm just trying to give Fred Durst his little bit of credit. Probably too much.
Wes Borland was the only good thing in that band.
I'm not even going to disagree with you there. So I know that I kind of started dropping like the comic book things a little bit, but to be more direct, I know that you're an artist. I know that you do the artwork, amazing artwork, for your singles and for your album covers. Talk about your art a little bit, just in any facet. Start where you want, end where you want.
I hate art. Like, my own art, I hate it.
Why?
Just I'm never satisfied with it. I have a habit of overkill, and if it wasn't for people around me going, "No, it's good, just go with that, stop tweaking it," I would never finish anything. I just am a really, really harsh self-critic, and it's weird for me because like everyone always goes on about my artwork, but I just always feel really weird about it. Like I don't know. Like to me, all art is an expression of yourself. It's why I was so gravitated towards punk rock my whole life since I was a kid. Was art, the art of it. You know, the freedom of expression, the freedom of identity, and so I put a lot of that into my art. I mean, yeah, even. And I try, like, it's one of those reasons why I'm not one of those guys that you see. I do commissions, but I'm really picky. So if someone's like, "Oh, I want you to draw a picture of my dog," and I'm like, "What's the dog doing?" Like, "Oh, I want you to draw a picture of my dog." Okay. No.
Charge a little bit extra for that.
Yeah. It's sort of just like, I don't want to do this fee, and that's a nice way of saying it. But yeah, it's just, I do have that tendency. But yeah, art to me is an expression. It's just like the same thing. Like, I mean, music to me is art. Writing is art. You know, one of the things that I get, I can't stand, and it's such a single-minded view. We talked about hip-hop a little bit, is the art of lyricism in hip-hop is art. It's art. Like, that's why I don't like hip-hop these days, because I feel like that identity of it is lost to a lot of kids. I don't really get it. I feel like some old man on my lawn just being like, "Get out of here, little Pete." But
you're preaching to the fucking
I don't
dude.
get
I'm
it.
an old school hip hop idealist, and I will live and die by it.
I just feel weird. Like, I give everything a chance too. I give everything a really good chance.
I do.
And
yeah, because you never know.
All my kids love like Little Peep and all that stuff, and I've listened to it a lot, and I just don't get it. I don't see it. I guess I'm missing the bigger picture. I mean, I respect that the kid did something. I mean, that's cool, I guess, but I just don't get it. And it always makes me feel weird when people are like, "Do you like him?" I'm like, no.
I honestly think in those cases it's like R&B and like pop artists who like really want to be rappers, but they're not. You're not rappers.
Well, my favorite thing
like
is
Malone.
my favorite thing with that is people who've told me, he created emo rap, and then I'm like, that's funny, because I remember guys like Common and them getting labeled that. I mean, Joe Budden dubbed himself that, like.
Yeah, conscious rappers.
Well, no, I mean, conscious rappers is a whole other thing, but remember, I mean, he literally did. Was it Dear Diary would be constituted as emo rap? I mean,
that's a good point.
It's one of those things. Like, I'll bring out my hip hop history, buddy. I know it. I'll go.
I just, it's really, like you said, you want to give everyone a chance, and I want to, like, because it'd be great if we could have, like, some new stream of, like, amazing hip-hop that, I don't know what it would be, but just, but we're getting, like, a new stream of, like, garbage.
I think political conscious hip-hop is next. Run the Jewels seems to be kind of playing on that a lot.
Yeah, but, like, Run the Jewels is cool, but when it starts to become gimmick rap, that political shit, it gets really, like, annoying. Well, like, when that's the only... Run the Jewels, they have so many different things that they rap about. They have so many different things. Like, those guys are so talented. Those guys are so intelligent. Then, when it's all just about the politics and it only goes down one lane...
No, I'm just saying, I think that's the doorway we're seeing open. I think we're seeing... I just had a conversation with a buddy of mine the other day that's still in the hip-hop game, and he told me... He referred to it as punk rap. It made me laugh. And he was like, yeah, I think it's like punk rap. And I'm like, okay. And he was
that's a good way to explain it.
Yeah. And he was just like more social, economic, political commentaries as opposed to sitting on dubs.
Punk or grunge?
They're the same thing. Punk's not a music. Punk's an ideal. It's like an idea. Grunge is a commercial tag given... Okay, grunge is Mudhoney. And then Nirvana blew up, and then some reporter somewhere asked someone something or made a comment about something that became grunge. Because before that, I think only Mudhoney dubbed grunge rock as a joke, and it was based on the Superfuzz Big Muff record, which is because Jack and Dino, who produced that, had stated that the record. He asked them at one point, he goes, it's really muddy and distorted, and you really want to run it that way? And they were like, yeah, we fucking love this. But grunge is more of a commercial. I mean, I get it. Like now, it's become a genre, but it's still a subgenre of punk. It's just slowed down punk, mixed with a little bit of thrash, maybe. But punk, to me, in the grand scheme of things, if we were really going to get into like the argument of genres, we're at like the 7th wave of punk right now. So realistically, to me, punk's just always been an ideology. I mean, it wasn't even like back in the CBGB days and stuff. It wasn't started called punk until commercialization of the Sex Pistols and Ramones and stuff.
Yeah, when they needed to have a label to put on it. That's a really good point.
Yeah, well, I mean, Punk Magazine existed, which is where they got the name. But before that, a lot of those bands didn't like being labeled that because it was a derogatory term. It literally meant that you got like fucked in prison.
Not me, folks.
So, I mean...
You just learned that?
I didn't know. Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Hey, like I said, I'm not a know-it-all. I come to learn.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's also, like, the fact that we had a lot of rampant homophobia in the punk scene early on. People don't really adjust that, which is weird because a lot of... You look back at, like, the stories now and you're like, everyone was fucking everybody. But apparently, like, there was also this, like, weird thing of, like, oh, yeah, we're totally fucking, but don't tell anybody. Oh, God. So, yeah. But, yeah, I mean... I don't know. I think that they're one and the same. I mean, to me, Nirvana is punk, But then, like, that's the thing. Like, grunge. Grunge was just, like, this label they slapped on the Seattle bands. It wasn't even the Seattle sound. Because, I mean, think about that. Think about all those bands and how they're all grunge. Does Pearl Jam sound like Nirvana? Does Nirvana sound like Alice in Chains? Does Alice in Chains sound like Soundgarden? Does Soundgarden sound like Mudhoney? Does Mudhoney sound like the Melvins? None of those fucking bands sound the same.
That's a good fucking point.
Yeah, and no one ever does that. No one ever breaks that down. And believe me, you asked the right guy that question because, like, I've a fucking Nirvana shrine here. Like, I'm the biggest Nirvana fan you could probably ever meet. But yeah, like, I mean, there was no there's no rhyme or reason for that. I mean, realistically, they just sort of dubbed it that. So, I mean, my favorite thing ever was an interview with Chris Cornell, and someone asked him about their style. And he's like, it's not a style. We dress like this 'cause it's fucking cold and it's Seattle.
That's a good point. That's probably the best way to wrap up everything you just said in one sentence. And especially from the lips of an angel. Rest in peace. Anyways, do any bands besides Nirvana matter to you?
Oh, yeah.
Is Nirvana the greatest band ever?
No.
What's the
No.
greatest Nirvana album ever?
In utero.
What's the greatest song off In Utero?
Radio-friendly unit shifter, probably.
Who's your favorite member of Nirvana?
That's a stupid question.
Why do you like Nirvana?
I guess because I'm old, that I can say that being young in the 90s, to kind of give an example, I don't exactly know how old you guys are, but I can say that as I'm pushing 40 this year, my kids live in a world where there's a lot more acceptance, there's a lot more my daughter's gay, and she can go to school, and people are okay with that. It's very hard to explain to my kids sometimes how different high school was for me. That, things that we would say back then.
Yeah, I'm just starting to think of stuff I wouldn't even say on the camera, but that was like...
So, then you have this guy come out, and first of all, hair metal alone was just everywhere. And you have this guy, and he sort of just pisses all over the establishment in a way that I had never seen as a kid, man. And I remember my uncle turned me on to Nirvana. He'd listen to the Bleach record a lot. And then I remember when Teen Spirit happened, I remember where I was at when I first saw the Teen Spirit video was at my grandma's house. My uncle was watching MTV, and it came on. And I remember just sitting there like, whoa, because I'd never heard anything like that before. And it really fucking changed the game. I mean, it changed everything. And, a lot of people like to shit on them. I have, I have a hard-on for shitting on, just shutting down people who go, oh, Kurt Cobain died and that's why they got famous. And I'm like, bro, go look at the pictures from the Reading Festival. Go look at those pictures of where they headlined the Reading Festival in '92. And there's 500,000 people there. And tell me that they were the Beatles.
Everybody wants to pull you down where they are.
Yeah, they don't get it. And it's I don't care if you don't like them, but you can't ignore their their importance. I remember a guy trying to tell me that Nirvana was not responsible for Green Day's success, and I was like, bro, all those bands have said in 1,000 interviews and 1,000 times, from Fat Mike to Billy Joe Armstrong to everyone, that Teen Spirit changed everything for them, because that's what happened in the music industry. Is all of a sudden everyone was getting signed. Everyone was getting signed. And then you go look at Pennywise, the interview in that Punk documentary, where Pennywise were like, we didn't sign. It was the worst idea we ever did. We were trying to be punk rock. So it's for me, Nirvana created something. And then for me also, I didn't have, I was an outcast in a redneck town, on the outskirts of Tampa. I grew up kind of in this really weird way where I didn't have people that I felt connected to. There weren't a lot of punk rock kids in that area and stuff. And I remember it felt like when Kurt Cobain would talk in interviews when I was a kid, it felt like I was, I was 13 when he died. So it's I felt this is it's like an uncle, like a cool uncle that you wanted to listen to.
Good old Uncle Kurt.
And I remember, I hung on his interviews. I love their music, don't get me wrong, but I remember just the stuff he would fucking say, man. The thing about, if you're racist, homophobic, misogynistic, whatever, don't buy my fucking records, don't come to my fucking shows, I don't want your money, I don't like you, you don't support us. That was, in 1993, dude, you're what the fuck?
Yep.
That was light years ahead.
Yeah, and you gotta think,
there was no political
I don't
correctness
feel
there.
like he gets enough credit for being so outspoken as the John Lennon of his era. He doesn't get enough credit for how much he fought the establishment. I mean, MTV goes, don't play Rape Me even though it's literally an anti-rape song, like date rape song, and he goes on TV, starts to play another song, like I think it was supposed to be Teen Spirit, and he goes into Rape Me on MTV at the award shows. I mean, before that, like The Who would smash stuff, but The Who smashed stuff in a way that it felt like orchestrated in some ways. Like, you know, it smashed
The Who was
guitars,
like that, though.
but,
Everything was like a
but
big,
like Nirvana, it was like almost like watching a car crash happen. You never knew it was going to happen. And that was like that punk rock ethics that they had. And then, you know, Danny Goldberg wrote a book that came out now 2 years ago on the anniversary of Kurt's death, where he talks about how, you know, Kurt, like, refused to sell out. In all the interviews and all the segments and everything they tried to plan for Nirvana, he would always go, well, what is the underground scene going to think? Because he never wanted to sell out. He was never about commercializing himself in any way. And, I mean, obviously that's probably what killed him, too, was that he couldn't deal with the fact that he automatically became John Lennon, which anyone who wants to fucking disagree, I got numbers, I can show you. But the point is that literally, like, the guy became that. And so for me, it was like watching this guy that was like one of us. Like, he was one of us, and he was just toppling over things. Literally the rumors abound, and like, this is before the internet, and we're all hearing about him getting into a fist fight with like Axl Rose backstage, who literally is like the poster boy for 1980s machismo. So like for like, you know, being this, you know, skinny, you know, kid that lives in, you know, like I said, like the country outskirts of fucking Tampa, who doesn't get a lot of access to this kind of stuff. It was like, oh, everyone's running around thumping their chests, singing Guns N' Roses, and there's this guy that just comes in and shits all over. And I remember, you know, I remember like everything about them resonated with me in a way that was like, even to this day, like it still resonates with me in weird ways. Now, granted, I mean, yeah, the music's a lot. It holds up, but the music's still also a lot different in the sense of I hear it differently than I did back then. Back then, I heard Teenage Angst. I heard, you know, like a voice for outsiders and stuff like that. And now I listen to it totally different from a perspective of I'm now, you know, so much older than he was when he died, and that he was, you know, that's a whole other fucking can of worms we can talk about sometime. But yeah, like I said, you asked a very loaded question for me there, but
shit's getting way too deep for 13 minutes.
But yeah, but I don't think Nirvana is the best band ever. That would be insane. I mean, I don't think there is a best band ever. I think that's such a subjective idea that you can't do that. But I will say the most important artist of the last 150 years was Robert Johnson. So, I mean...
So, given how much you like Nirvana and Kurt Cobain and stuff, how did you deal with passing the 27-year-old mark?
It was weird.
Yeah.
It was fucking weird. I remember just being really... I remember growing up thinking 27 was the end. Like, as weird as it is, because, I mean, your hero died. So you're like, oh, well, that's the end. What do you do after that? Like, where do you go? And I think for me, it was if it wasn't for my kids, I don't know where I would have went. You know, I did the single dad thing for so long that I don't know. Because, I mean, like, that's the whole thing, too. Like, my ex-wife is a walking human piece of garbage, and she has nothing to do with our 4 kids that she abandoned. And I've raised them, you know, since they were super young. Like, my son was only 5, and he's the oldest. He's 17 now. And she was never in the picture, really. So I guess maybe I was just so focused on trying not to fuck that up that maybe it wasn't as big of a deal. But I remember it really was being a weird thought, and even now it's still weird to think.
Well, now that I'm on the verge of tears, Martin, thanks a lot, man. I'm Paul Goon. He's Martin Dunn from Less Than Expected. Next week we'll be chilling at the homestead with the only MC of Season 8. See you next week.
Play flute, road crew shit. If you can't be used well, then I guess you're useless. Ulysses S. Grant, we should start a revolution or a civil war, whatever you're into. Kids, down for whatever, let's just go ahead and do it. Do without the loud talk, dog, fucking prove it. Shoot towards the hoop or get the boot like it was soccer.